Good morning. Can we get everybody to kind of move up front a little bit? I know you guys like to sit in the back of the room, but if we could get everybody to move up towards the front. Not everybody at once. Nobody? How about the back row? Please stand up and you can come sit up front, please. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to this year's EMS conference as we come together to celebrate a truly, truly remarkable milestone. This year is the 25th anniversary of this event, and to honor that, I stand before you as dedicated professionals, leaders, and educators, and partners to represent the very, very best of EMS, and particularly here in New Jersey. So this year, we not only celebrate the longevity of our conference, but we also the extraordinary innovation and advancement happening throughout our state. Together, we are nearing the launch of mobile integrated health, bringing a new era of proactive, community-centered care to New Jersey, and we are expanding access to blood products in pre-hospital settings, saving lives before patients ever meet the hospital. We have implemented a new BLS and ALS protocols, strengthening the clinical practice statewide, and we continue to advance the BLS scope of practice to better equip all of our EMTs with the tools and the training that they need. And importantly, we are also nearing the launch of a new EMT refresher program, which will be modernizing continuing education and ensuring our clinical care and the clinicians remain prepared to meet the evolving needs of the communities that they serve. So each of these accomplishments represents countless hours of collaboration, commitment, and hard work, from our providers in the field to our educators, medical directors, coordinators, and agency leaders. They are a testament to the strength of our system and the unwavering dedication of the people in this room. As we celebrate 25 years of learning, partnership, and progress, I want to thank all of you for the work that you do each day. Your service, innovation, compassion continue to set the standards for EMS across the nation. So, I have a few things that I need to give you, a few rules for our conference here today, and a little bit of information. So, for CEU credit, everybody got scanned in, right? Yes? Okay, if you leave the session, you need to be scanned out, and then if you come back, you need to be scanned back in. But you cannot miss more than 15 minutes of any session throughout the conference. So that's for EMS clinicians. RNs can't miss any more than 10 minutes of the session. Otherwise, you cannot receive CE credit. Okay, please silence all of your mobile devices so that they're not going off in the middle of the speaker's presentation. Emergency exits at the back of the room, and there are 2 emergency exits behind me, behind the stage. Bathrooms, if you haven't been here before, you go out these doors to the left or to the right. On either side of the conference hall are the restrooms. Okay. So, I'm just making sure I cover all the bases. I don't want to get yelled at for not covering everything for you guys. QR code. So has everybody downloaded the app, the Avail app? If you have not, please see one of our team who is in blue today. They will have a QR code for you to scan. You can download the app, and they will have the access code for you to gain entry into the app. All of your sessions, in order to receive credit, you do also need to fill out the session evaluation, and then at the conclusion of the conference, please fill out the overall conference evaluation. We'd greatly appreciate that you do that, and then you will be sent a transcript from the conference planners, and then later on you will receive that credit in New Jersey's CE platform. Okay, and finally, once the conference exhibit hall opens, please don't miss your opportunity to first collaborate and meet my entire team here at the Office of EMS and the Division of Disaster Preparedness, Resiliency, and Emergency Medical Services. That's a a tongue tire, right? It's really long. I know, bless. But that is our new division name, and the importance of that is that EMS is part of the division, of which we've never been really recognized to that level before. So it's important for all of you to realize that you are important, and we value all the work that you do. Make sure you do meet up with my team at the booth and get your opportunity to win a free conference for next year. So more information on that, please make sure that you speak with one of them. And further, I know you don't want to me to speak at you anymore, so I will give our introduction to our keynote speaker who you're all diligently waiting for. Donnie Woodyard Jr. is an author of the nationally recognized EMS leader for over 30 years of EMS experience, policy, and innovation. He has served as the state EMS director for Louisiana and Colorado, the COO of the NREMT, and now as executive director of the United States EMS Compact. His work has advanced EMS governance, clinical mobility, and national preparedness. Internationally, he has led EMS development in Sri Lanka and South Asia. He has responded to disaster and conflict zones worldwide. A graduate of the Naval Postgraduate School's Executive Leadership Program, he holds a master's in management and leadership and is completing his doctorate in law and policy. Donnie is also a scuba diver master, fixed-wing pilot, and a Civil Air Patrol squadron commander. Please put your hands together and welcome Donnie Woodyard.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning. I was set on that. Excellent. What if we had the chance to redesign EMS? What if we could start over? What if we could leverage technology? What if we could solve the impossible problems that we're faced today in a whole new way? I think we have that opportunity right in front of us. It was 2005. I was an EMS chief in Indianapolis. I had previously worked in Eritrea, Somalia, Ethiopia, and I had a phone call come in that said, would you consider going to the island of Sri Lanka? And my first question was, for how long? And they said, will you go there for 6 months and improve their EMS system? And well, I was like, okay, let's consider this. So I did some research. And like many of you, I remember watching the Asia tsunami that happened, and Sri Lanka was one of the countries that had been hit. But I did some research on the country, and wow, what an amazing country. The size of West Virginia in geography, 21 million people, 2 different languages spoken, pristine beaches. As a scuba diver, I loved wild elephants, tea plantations. I mean, this place looked like a slice of paradise on earth. And I was like, wow, 6 months to go and improve the EMS system. Why not? Why would anyone ever say no? So I said yes. So I took a 6-month leave of absence. However, when I got there, the rubble of the tsunami was still very visible. The coastal lines have been destroyed. 40-some thousand people have been killed. But the day I landed at the airport, the ceasefire from the 30-year Civil War broke down within an hour of me landing. So now I found myself in a tsunami and a conflict zone. We had buses that were literally blowing up in the streets. The nation had went back into this very fragile position. And by the way, the size of West Virginia with 2 navies, 2 air forces, 2 armies, and the inventor of the suicide bomb. That's where it originated. Needless to say, it was a complicated situation. But I tried to focus on improving their EMS system. But as I was there, I quickly found out there was no system to improve. They didn't even have a national number. You couldn't even call for an ambulance. There was no 911 or number to call. There was no training curriculum. There was no foundation in place. Only doctors carried stethoscopes, not even nurses. And I'm like, how in the world, where do I even start? Like, there's nothing here. And I'll be honest, I thought about getting on the plane and just going back home. Well, 6 months turned into nearly 10 years. But we started with what we had. And what we had was tuk-tuks, elephants, tractors. We had a people who realized they needed a solution, and they were committed to it. They had seen what happens when you don't have EMS. They knew they wanted that. They didn't know how to get there. So we started putting these pieces together. Today, 20 years later, Sri Lanka has an amazing system. Not only do they have an amazing system, the World Bank has said it's probably one of the most advanced systems on the planet. This came out just a couple months ago. So we went from literally nothing to one of the most advanced systems. But on the video you see behind me, not only is it an advanced system, but it's an advanced system that was built from technology from day one. My very first day when we started designing the dispatch, we said we're going to integrate health records into dispatch. So when you call, we know more than just your name. We want to know your health background. We want to make sure that we can make an informed decision to send the right type of medical care to you at the right time. Maybe it's an emergency and you get a helicopter or you get a ground ambulance. Maybe you need a doctor at home. Maybe you need a scheduled visit. Maybe you need preventive health. Maybe you need none of that, but maybe you need social care. So we started building that in from day one. Today, they utilize augmented reality in the back of all 400 plus ambulances. EMTs are using augmented reality with Microsoft HoloLens. They're using LiDAR to scan patients. They're using holographic overlays to help guide procedures. You have an advanced level of technology that's able to raise the level of care. They have a national strategy where pharmaceuticals don't go to waste because AI tracks every single med on the ambulance, and they know if this med's not used in this region, rotate it within this 3-day window to this region. That way you have nearly zero waste. They've responded to nearly 40 million patients since I first went there 20 years ago. How do you go from absolutely nothing into something that seems impossible to possible? Well, we made very bold and very collaborative decisions. We worked together and we said, we recognize the odds. We recognize this looks impossible, but we're going to do it anyway. I think today in EMS, if we're honest, we look out and we see challenges in front of us. We see challenges with recruitment and retention. We see challenges with reimbursement. I challenge us, let's not ignore those. Let's look at those and they say, I recognize the odds, but let's build something bigger and greater, and let's get to a point, maybe 5 years from now, maybe 20 years from now, that's better than where we started from. See, if we had never started 20 years ago, Sri Lanka wouldn't have arguably one of the best EMS systems of the world. You have to start in the face of challenge. So how do you go from a vision of a future? If I ask any of you who are visionaries, what's your vision for EMS? You probably have a vision for EMS somewhere in your mind. How do you go from that vision and actually execute it? Because vision without execution is nothing but a dream, and some dreams are nightmares and some are fairy tales. We got to go from vision to execution, and the way that we went was through 3 C's. Clarity. You have to be very clear with the vision you want to go. You have to communicate. You have to communicate that vision. You have to translate that vision for others. And then finally, you have to collaborate. And I'm going to come back to that over the next few minutes. Speaking of collaboration, there's an old African proverb, and I was reminded of this at the Naval Postgrad School a year ago. And we had one of the former Joint Chiefs speaking with us there, and he reminded us, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. In EMS, we have an obligation to our communities actually to go far. We do that through collaboration. Oftentimes in EMS, one of the biggest things that I see as I look across the nation here in the United States today is that we try to go fast and we don't collaborate. We try to solve problems for our local community and we don't look outside of our border. And we create, these silos that actually hold us back and keep us from realizing the future that is very possible. It's the kind of leadership that we channeled in Sri Lanka, is also the type of leadership that created the modern EMS system that you and I are part of today in the United States. And I think that there's some huge lessons in history. So I started looking back in history of EMS because I had my experience in designing systems, actually in 3 countries. But I wanted to find out about designing the system in the United States. And what I found is that visionary leadership always starts with the imagination that's anchored in reality. You can't just have a crazy vision that's impossible. You have to anchor it in reality. But visionary leaders don't predict the future. We design it. And we have the opportunity today in EMS to design our future. Now here's the other side of that coin. If we are not designing our future, someone else will. I hope that it's the people in this room and the people in the rooms that I'm speaking to across the nation that we choose to come together and design our destiny rather than be a passenger on someone else's train that's going to decide where and how we go. Let's look back at our own history. How many of you have ever heard of the name Dr. Peter Safar? You know, this crowd has more hands up than any crowd I've talked to in the United States so far. That's amazing. So, well, let's talk about Dr. Peter Safar for a few minutes. What an amazing man. So he was an anesthesiologist in the 1950s. And at the time, medical conventional wisdom said you don't exhale air out of one person into another person to sustain life. Doesn't work, don't do it. CPR didn't exist. And Dr. Peter Safar said, no, I don't think that's right. And in fact, I'm going to prove it. And he said, give me a Boy Scout and a firefighter and a TV camera. And then he did this.
The experimental study you are about to see compared various methods of artificial respiration. First, by selecting as subjects men and women of various body types. Second, by anesthetizing and curarizing these subjects in order to simulate limp asphyxia victims. Third, by having untrained lay personnel perform some of these methods. This Boy Scout will perform mouth-to-airway breathing. He has some difficulty, but corrects himself. He was able to adequately ventilate subjects weighing up to 210 pounds.
Yeah, and then a few weeks later, he met a guy by the name of Mr. Laerdal that created the first resusciani, and that was the birth of CPR and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which not only changed the way medicine is done, but it changed the entire world. Dr. Peter Safar didn't stop there. Peter Safar went on, and he, a few years later, a little bit more white hair, founded the Freedom House Ambulance Service, which many of you have heard of. He came up with the very first concepts for what paramedics could do. He designed the first purpose-built ambulance for EMS, and he added the airway seat. If you've ever sat in an airway seat in an ambulance, it's because Dr. Peter Safar, an anesthesiologist who saw the potential of creating a new form of medicine, designed that and put that in. Now, in 1969, he actually said, you know, by the way, I have this vision for ambulances and this vision for a national ambulance service, but we need to have medical records. So he wrote this white paper and he called for the computerized analysis of ambulance attendants' records, and he designed the very first ePCR run sheet here, or the very first PCR run sheet. He envisioned NIMSIS decades before the technology existed. To put that in perspective, in 1969, a single computer at NASA is about $2.1 million in today's money. So Peter Safar said, I need to computerize digital records for ambulances, which, by the way, don't really exist yet, for EMTs, which hadn't officially had a designation in healthcare until the next year, for paramedics, which he would later create 8 years later, using computers that cost $2 million in EMS services that don't exist. That was what he wrote in his paper. But today we benefit from that, and we have one of the most robust data sets in all of medicine. It's used for syndromics, it's used for national security, it's used for billing, it's used to advocate for our systems. At the same conference, he said, by the way, if we're going to make a medical profession, we need to have it standardized, and we need a medical board for that. And he called for the development of the American Registry of EMTs. And then next year, President Johnson authorized the creation of the National Registry of EMTs based on his paper. Dr. Peter Safar had the ability to see over the horizon and create what we needed, not what we knew. He had the ability to create what the future world would need, even though other people around him didn't see it or understand it. That is a visionary. In the development of the 1977 paramedic curriculum, he brought together people from all over the United States. He brought together other doctors and other visionaries. But I want to, and many of you probably know these names or have seen them, but I want to point out something very important. Any name on this slide could have done it alone in their local area. Dr. Eugene Nagel is incredible down in Miami. Dr. Norm McSwain, I mean, he did incredible stuff at the time in Kansas City and later in New Orleans. These are powerhouses. Yet they chose to come together and collaborate. They chose to come together and put their own pride to the side and compromise to create a national curriculum that was bigger than what they were doing in their own city. In EMS, we have to get back to the spot where we choose to collaborate with our neighbors, not only in our state or in our community. We have to make sure that we're addressing national solutions through a national lens where we bring together and compromise views from around the nation. That's how we created EMS in the 1960s and 1970s. That's how we created the paramedic curriculum. Unless we do that today, we'll end up just fragmented. There are 7 things that I'm convinced that visionaries do, and these are the aspects that helped us create today's EMS system, and it's the aspects that's going to help us pivot for the future. Embrace curiosity, ask questions. Don't settle for it doesn't work, but ask the question why and what can I do to fix it. Work in collaboration, demand excellence. If anyone offers you a solution that starts with lowering the standard or compromising on excellence, ignore them, turn, and run the other way. That is not how you create a profession. Let's make sure that as we're looking into the future, we are embracing the opportunity for excellence and standards. Now, as we pivot and talk about the future, because that's why you came here, one more look into the past. It was 1903 in Hartford, Connecticut, and a year before, the police chief there went out on a limb, and he chose to replace their horses with an electric ambulance, likely the very first motorized ambulance in the United States, Hartford, Connecticut. And a year later, he wrote down, these vehicles perform work that was done by 5 horses. But let's dive into that a little bit. 1903. That police chief changed tradition. Horses were the way of transport. Electric vehicles were not trusted or understood, certainly probably expensive. But what about the farriers? What about the blacksmiths in the town? What about the people who took care of the horses? They were going to lose their jobs. Let's just be clear. Technology changed their job, and they had to adapt. He now needed people that could put tires on an electric ambulance and take care of electric motors and take care of charging stations. But aren't you glad that today, when the ambulance call goes out, we don't saddle up and go? I know I am. I love horseback riding, but I'm grateful that technology pushed us forward in 1903. We're at that same pivot point today, and some of you are going to have the same questions of, well, will this AI stuff cause someone to lose their job? I'm going to tell you yes. It will. Just like the blacksmiths and the farriers no longer had a job in Hartford and around the world. But there will be new jobs and new opportunities and transition points. I encourage us, don't look at technology as a threat, but let's look at it as a tool. Back in Sri Lanka, I had the opportunity to live down the road from Arthur Clarke. Arthur Clarke was an incredible guy, had the chance to have tea with him a couple of times, and this guy was amazing. He was a futurist beyond futurist. He talked about the future in 1960s.
Horizon filmed him at the World's Fair in New York. He's Arthur Clarke.
Trying to predict the future is a discouraging and hazardous occupation because the prophet invariably falls between two stools. If his predictions sound at all reasonable, you can be quite sure that in 20 or at most 50 years, the progress of science and technology has made him seem ridiculously conservative. On the other hand, if by some miracle a prophet could describe the future exactly as it was going to take place, his predictions would sound so absurd, so far-fetched, that everybody would laugh him to scorn. This has proved to be true in the past, and it will undoubtedly be true, even more so, of the century to come. The only thing we can be sure of about the future is that it will be absolutely fantastic.
Let's see if we can describe a future that's going to be fantastic and absolutely make you laugh me to scorn. As I grew up as a kid, I used to watch the Jetsons, and many of you probably did as well, and I used to think about flying cars. Well, flying cars are no longer a thing of the future. If you've not seen this video yet, which, by the way, was featured on Fox and CNN just this past week, fire services in California now have access to this flying car. And this car costs less than $1 to operate for 1 hour. And it's vertical takeoff and landing. You can land in a patient's driveway. You can take a paramedic and hop over traffic. You can fly blood in it. You can get from point A to point B. I want to be clear, this is version 1 that's out commercially available. You can buy this. If you have $250,000, you can buy it. Less than the cost of an ambulance. You don't have to have a pilot license to fly it. You can fly it under a waiver. And they're training people up to do this. This has unique utility in the future. How do we get through traffic jams? How do we get, over terrain that's difficult? As this continues to develop, the motors are going to get stronger, the batteries are going to get better, the lift capabilities are going to expand. Again, I'm not showing you the future with this video. I'm showing you history. This is not the future. This has already happened. It may not be here yet. But this is going to change the way we do EMS in technologies like this. But that's not the only technology that's going to change. This is another aircraft company based out of Colorado. This is a publicly traded company, and this is their rendering video of an aircraft that is in design phases right now. They have completely re-envisioned the concept of vertical takeoff and landing. And they've developed this aircraft that is most likely, in my prediction, going to completely change and disrupt what is helicopter EMS today. See, there's a big problem with helicopter EMS. We only fly about 400,000 of 60 million patients a year. It's very expensive. It is dangerous. We produce in the United States about 700 helicopter pilots per year. We're losing about 1,000. We're not getting them from the wars anymore. The front line has changed. We are getting some from the military, but not the numbers that we're used to. That's not going to be a sustainable model, not to mention it's very expensive. They're designing this aircraft to completely change that. And when you think about the specs, and this is from their website, they're saying that their design is able to go 300 miles per hour. That's about 2.5 times faster than most of our helicopters can go. It can go up to 25,000 feet with a fully pressurized cabin. You can take off and land from a field or helipad in an unapproved area. You can actually go over 1,000 miles, which is helipad to helipad, which is farther than even some of the best helicopters we have. So the day of actually, using helicopter EMS, well, it's not going to go away tomorrow. There's technology that's changing that very, very rapidly. This is their rendering on the company's website. This is how they envision. And let me be very clear. They have targeted EMS as a prime market opportunity. Pivotal, the very first, flying car concept. It's not by accident that the vehicle that they're flying on CNN and Fox News is designed with an EMS scheme on it. They're focusing on EMS. My point is, others have realized the potential in EMS, and they're investing a lot of time, money, and effort. The federal government has released multiple calls in federal registers for innovation in vertical takeoff and landing, and they're putting massive dollars towards it. This is the future. It's going to change what we do. When I ask AI to show me what it looks like asking for a medical transport in the future, this is what AI tells me. I think it's pretty darn close. It's a vertical takeoff and lift, but what about this little like humanoid thing that's there? Like, is that the future of us? Is that, do we have an exoskeleton? Maybe. But even more than that, humanoids are a real thing. I haven't even got to the future yet. I'm still telling you about history. This is the Figure 3 robot. A colleague of mine is actually, a friend of mine is one of the engineers on this project. This is a humanoid that they put into a house, and they basically said, go and clean the house. So the robot figures out what it looks like to clean a house, what task needs to be done, and it starts with taking out the trash, doing laundry, folding clothes, doing dishes. The video even goes on to show it throwing a ball and playing fetch with a dog. Autonomous, figuring it out on its own. I don't know about you, but I would love to have that in my house and take care of my cleaning. But how are you viewing this emerging technology? Be honest with yourself right now. Are you resisting this? Are you embracing this? Do you have questions? Are you saying, no, this isn't possible? Last year, I did a video, and in this video, I talked about autonomous ambulances. Now, I know some of you probably saw this video, and some of you were probably part of the 99,000 people who actually wrote comments like that. Don't self-identify if you were one of these people with a comment. The comments were absolutely amazing, and some of them were creative. I really do love the Minion. And that was great. But people thought I had lost my mind, and they said I was crazy, has no idea what he's talking about, because I had just suggested that autonomous vehicles were going to move patients. Now, what none of the 99 or 100,000 people who reshared this video knew is that I wasn't talking about the future. I was talking about something that happened in 2022. Autonomous patient transports happened 3 years ago. This is in Peoria, Arizona, and it's called the Beat Mobile Transport. This is an autonomous patient mover, and it would do a circuit between senior living, nursing homes, assisted care, doctor's offices, and the hospital. And it would move patients autonomously between those points to and from appointments. Low acuity, but what's the difference between this and if you put a stretcher in the back? It's the same technology. I wasn't talking about the future in that video. I was simply trying to educate us in EMS of the past. And 99,000 of our colleagues thought I was outrageous and out of my mind when they had no idea that they had been sleeping at the wheel and didn't know what was happening around them. That's a real problem. However, that Beat Mobile was a... Did we lose audio? Hello? I'm still good? Okay, cool. Beat Mobile was a pilot project, and it's no longer functioning today because they've moved on to other technology. But they were testing it, and they got the data they wanted. But Waymo, how many of you have ridden in a Waymo? Anyone? One? Candace wins. So Waymo. Well, let's talk about Waymos real quick, if you're not familiar with this. Again, this is not future tech. This is yesterday's tech, but this is the Waymo. I want to point out, this is a Jaguar car, and they bolt on what's called the Waymo and the sensors. And that's very important because they could bolt that on any vehicle. They chose to bolt it onto a Jaguar. Kind of cool. And what they do is they simply slide the driver's seat all the way forward because you don't have a driver in it, and the vehicle drives itself. However, as we think about new technology, I want to caution you very much. If your first reaction is, that's not safe, or if you bring up technology and someone on your team says it's not safe, it doesn't meet the standards, I want to challenge you that that's probably the wrong reaction. And it's probably not informed, and it's probably a dangerous reaction. Because we often hide behind terms like safety when we don't understand something. And we have an obligation to our communities to understand this technology and figure out how to implement it, not to resist it for the purpose of resistance. Let's look at the numbers about safety. This is off the Waymo website. They have, as of July 2025, and the numbers are even more now, they have driven without a human 96 million miles. Not a single at-fault death or serious injury accident. 96 million miles, not a single death or accident. So you might look at Waymo and say, that's not safe. I don't trust the computer. I'm not going to get in that thing. And you're going to be absolutely wrong. The data is overwhelming the other side of the equation. But let's take that forward and think about pedestrians. I was in Arizona last month and just spoke to Arizona yesterday on this topic. People running down the street tell me I would rather see a Waymo coming beside me if I'm running or biking than a human, because the Waymo is not going to kill me. That's the reality. When I was in Phoenix, I saw more Waymos at the intersection than I did driven cars. That's the reality. You may not see it in your backyard yet, but that's the reality in the United States right now, in cities across the United States. But let's talk about safety again from this perspective. When humans drive, there's about a 5 in 1 million mile chance that you're going to be in a serious accident, and about a 3 chance it's going to be extremely serious. 3 out of 1 million miles driven. Now we know Waymo did 96 million miles with essentially 0, but let's look at ambulances. Ambulances, you're at a 35 per 1 million mile ratio, nearly 8 times as dangerous as if you're just driving to work. Driving the ambulance is one of the most dangerous and deadly things that we do in our life. As an EMS service agency leader, as an EMT or paramedic, why would you not embrace technology that reduced your chance of death or long-term injury by 8 times? We have to consider that in the future. Any day that you go online, you're going to see ambulance crashes and ambulance deaths. Now let's talk about autonomous vehicles and autonomous ambulances. This is a concept video from Volkswagen out of Germany, their headquarters there, and they put this out 3 years ago. Uh-oh, what did we just see there? Did we really see a concept video of Volkswagen with a van that transformed into an autonomous ambulance? Are billion-dollar companies thinking about our industry? Oh, yeah, they are. By the way, this is the VW ID Buzz. They just started making these in Georgia this year. Now, to be fair, and Volkswagen called me on this because they saw me say this, they have steering wheels in them here. Cool. I'm sure that's going to last like 2 years because they've already designed it and they have it fully autonomous in Europe. This is coming. So, when I think about that, when will autonomous ambulances get in your state? Now, one of the things people tell me is, oh, no, we have regulations against that. Oh, you do? Really? Let's think about that. In Colorado, I had people call my office, and they were like, hey, I've got a complaint because we have this, home visiting IV service that came, and they started an IV, and I want to file a complaint. And I say, oh, yeah, let's investigate that. And my AG said, sorry, Donnie, that's not EMS. I was like, oh, it kind of looks like EMS. They're like, no, that's not EMS. It's not in the definition. You don't have authority over that. It's like, well, where do I refer the complaint? They're like, we don't know, because it's not home care either, because we define home care as this, EMS is this. So we don't know what it is, but we know that you don't have regulatory authority over it. We define ambulances through a standard that was developed in the 1970s. I'm pretty sure this probably doesn't fit into our current design. Now, should it? Maybe. But when is this going to come here, and what are you going to do? When we look at across the horizon at venture capital, so the billionaires with a lot of money and where they put the money, and we look across the world, in the United States, the top two categories are healthcare and autonomous vehicles. And this was for over the past 5 years. What's the intersection of healthcare and autonomous and vehicles? It's EMS. EMS is a $60 billion market in the United States. And we say that we use the most expensive way to get the person to the most expensive care with one of the most dangerous forms of transport out there with very bad reimbursement rates. We have a staffing problem. If I reverse that and look at that through the lens of a venture capitalist, what do I see? Opportunity. We in EMS cannot sustain a system that even we know is broken. Big companies are looking at this, solutions are coming, and we should embrace that because ultimately we have a responsibility to our communities to deliver life-saving health care that is affordable and accessible and equitable. And we have the opportunity, but let's not miss the opportunity because if we ignore it, we're going to be torpedoed from the side. Now, I'm not saying that autonomous ambulances are going to replace 100% of your fleet. But what I am saying is you should consider how can you leverage autonomous ambulances. There's nothing today stopping you from taking the Waymo technology and bolting on to an F-350 and having it drive down the road. That technology already exists. People haven't done it yet, but there's nothing stopping it from being done. So not for every call, but some. What are some of the calls that we could benefit from autonomous ambulances? I was in Wyoming last month, and they said, hey, I've got a 4-hour transport. I've got a 6-hour transport to the level 1 trauma center. That autonomous ambulance sounds pretty darn good. What about interfacility transports? What about low acuity BLS calls? How many of you are maybe with a volunteer-based service, and wow, you're probably struggling for staff? What if you could respond to the house, and then one provider stay in the back, and then you flip the switch and you make it an autonomous ambulance, and your other volunteer goes back to home, work, whatever, and it reduces their workload, and now you get to the hospital in a way that is 8 times safer than if your colleague was driving. Autonomy isn't about taking the will away, but it's about giving us options. And when we're struggling for survivability, when we're struggling for finance, we need options. We need to consider everything. In Texas right now, between Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, 18-wheelers are now operating on the highway fully autonomous. And they're doing warehouse-to-warehouse transfers. 18-wheelers, you're driving down the road, you look beside of you, and you have no idea that there's not a driver in that truck. It's fully autonomous. It's safer, it's more efficient. But they're doing warehouse-to-warehouse because it's a fixed GPS point along a designated route to a fixed GPS point. That kind of sounds like interfacility transport. We have a fixed hospital location to a fixed hospital location along a designated route that we drive on every single day. That is the same technology. It's just a matter of time, and I suspect it's a matter of months now before that starts intersecting with EMS. Volkswagen, by the way, announced with that VW-ID buzz that supposedly didn't exist, that now they're in a long-term strategic partnership with Uber to bring the ID Buzz to Uber. Why does Uber want to partner with Volkswagen? Because they want an autonomous solution to drive autonomously. That's why they're doing that. By the way, have you ever heard of Uber Health? Uber Health just saved the Veterans Affairs Hospital $300 million in 2025 for, wait for it, patient transport. The intersections are coming together rapidly. People are looking at it. So here's my question to you, as an EMS leader, as a paramedic, as a clinician. Are you prepared for this transformation? Before you walked into this room today, was this even on your radar? I hope it was, but for many, the answer is probably no. If this was not on your radar, not only are you lagging, you're woefully behind. Others are looking at this. If you're not leading your service, if you're not preparing your community, who is preparing your community for what's happening around us? Visionary leaders always look beyond their own industry for both information and for inspiration. We have to look at what's going on in healthcare and with autonomous trucking and with aviation to see what's coming. These are position papers on AI. And, what just happened? Oh yeah, EMS. We're the only part of healthcare that hasn't put out an official position on AI. All of our colleagues have been working on this for 10 years. 10 years, some of them 15. They don't have version 1 of their positions, they're on version 5, 6, 7. Healthcare embraced AI 10 years ago. We're just seeing it coming to the forefront today, but they've been working on a foundation for years. Now, I would say that that provides us an opportunity if we stop sleeping and do something. And the opportunity is we can learn from them and catch up really quick. But our window of catching up and embracing is becoming more and more narrow by the day. But what can we learn from them? They have a clinician-first strategy. They believe that AI is there to help make the clinician better. In EMS, we have the opportunity to leverage AI to make the clinicians better. However, if the first thing you think about when I say AI is some little nifty charting tool that you can make your report better, that's cute and that's cool, but that was history as well. It should be a foregone conclusion. None of you should have to be writing a report anymore and typing it in. None of you should be having to do drop-downs at 300 drop-downs per patient call. AI solved those problems in healthcare years ago. When I visit my family doctor, he now wears a microphone, and he comes in and he says, "Donnie, it's great to see you again. By the way, I got the mic on." I say, "Yeah, I know, you've had the mic on for a year." And he goes, "Okay, cool." And then he does my assessment, and he talks to me, and we talk about flying and travel and fun. And then he says, "Oh, I'm listening to your lung sounds, and oh yeah, your lung sounds are clear. Things are looking good." Why is he verbalizing my lung sounds are clear? It's kind of like the old National Registry station. BSI, scene safe, I'm assessing the patient. Because the microphone is now listening to him. And so by the time I walk out of his office, out and get into my vehicle, my phone goes off, and what do I have in my pocket? I've got the complete chart, right? And it's done. My family doctor's been using that for a couple years now. It's even better than what it was 2 years ago. Not only do I see his notes, but they're done. But I want to go back to that first point. When was the last time your patient saw your chart? EMS is the only part of healthcare where we don't practice radical transparency to our patients. If I go get lab work, I see the lab work. If I go to my doctor, I see the results. If I go to a specialist, I can see their charting instantly. The public will wake up very soon and demand the same level of transparency for EMS from my doctor. Oh, and by the way, my family doctor visit cost me $3. If I called an ambulance that day, my out-of-pocket probably would have been $1,000 or more. So for one of the most expensive parts of healthcare out-of-pocket, I'm going to demand not only transparency, but accuracy, and I'm going to demand that it be integrated into my health record. That is what our patients are quickly going to demand from our industry. It's no longer optional. However, I know that we are not there yet in EMS. And so when we are talking about charting, we have to demand from the vendors that they provide EMS-specific charting. I don't need a SOAP narrative in the narrative form if I'm really being honest. And I apologize to my colleague Candace for saying that. But here's the reality. The vital signs are already Bluetoothed over from the monitor. They're in the drop-down. So is the skin condition. So is all this stuff. We have 300 to 900 drop-down fields. All that data is there. Yes, write a nice little narrative and have AI do it for you, and you should attest it that it's yours, and you should review it. But we have to make sure that narrative actually captures what's unique to EMS. As a former regulator, I actually want to see in the narrative. It was a dark, stormy, rainy night when I approached the house after a 10-minute delay because the roads were terrible. There were 10 dogs, and the house was full of stuff, and I couldn't open the front door, the side door, and I had to climb through the window. And by the way, it was full of uneaten food and trash. Social determinants of health, community health stuff. I want to see that in our narratives. We're the only part of healthcare that sees that. And why is that important? Because AI is going to take the entire health record and be able to analyze it in microseconds, and your details from the house are going to be more important than ever in 2 years. Because you are the only people that's going to see that for that patient. And that is going to be critical information. Now, make sure from an ethics perspective, when AI is helping write your report, just like when it writes my doctor's report, make sure that you read it. If it's a word there you don't understand, don't accept it. You got to be able to defend your work. However, let's have a little fun. And let's see what we can get going here. I'm going to bring up my trusty little tricoder AI bot. Live demos are always fun. Hey, good morning.
They sure are. Good morning to you too. And hey, whenever you're ready to show off that multilingual magic or anything else in your demo, just let me know and we'll make it fun.
Okay, cool. So here we are. Sorry, I don't think some people heard your greeting there. I'm at the conference, National Conference on EMS in New Jersey. Why don't you tell my new friends and colleagues hello?
Of course. Hello, everyone at the National Conference on EMS in New Jersey. It's great to be here virtually with all of you. I'm here to help Donnie with a little AI magic, so let's have some fun and dive in.
You know, I never know what you're going to say. Hey, first, I want to talk about, I'm taking care of a patient. This day is Mary Jane. I think I uploaded some of her sample records, but I'm a paramedic. I'm with her. She's saying that she feels weak today. Her blood pressure is 92 over 68. She's not able to tell me a lot about her medical history. She's given me access to actually access Health Information Exchange. Can you analyze all that you know about her medical history and help me come up with differentials and highlight anything important for me?
Absolutely. Let's do that. So I'll jump right in as if I'm pulling up Mary Jane's history and give you the quick rundown. All right, I've taken a look at Mary Jane's medical history from the Health Information Exchange. Here are the key points you should know. Mary Jane has a history of hypertension and has had a couple of episodes of congestive heart failure in the past. She's also managing type 2 diabetes. Recently, her primary care doctor adjusted her blood pressure meds about a week ago, and her cardiologist noted that her ejection fraction has been a little lower recently, which might put her at a bit higher risk of a CHF flare-up.
That's helpful. Sorry to cut you off there. So the doctor adjusted her hypertension med. Does it look like her cardiologist was involved with that decision?
Yeah, no worries at all. So looking at that detail, it seems like her cardiologist did have some input on that medication adjustment.
Okay, cool, thanks. Hey, that's helpful. Someone else just walked in the room and they're speaking a language. I don't even know what the language is. I need you to be my interpreter now. So, Maya babushka opala.
Absolutely, I can do that for you. So that phrase is Russian, and it basically means something like, my grandmother has fallen. If you need me to interpret more, just let me know.
So I don't speak Russian, so can you say, hey, I'm a paramedic, I'm here to help your grandmother. She's not feeling well today.
Of course. In Russian, you would say, Я фельдшер, я здесь, чтобы помочь вашей бабушке. Ей сегодня нехорошо. So that should cover you if you need to say that on the spot.
Someone else walked in and they just said, Astuti Ayaboan, Kahomada.
That's Sinhalese. They basically just said something like, thank you, how are you?
Cool.
So if you need me to translate anything else, just let me know.
So we have opportunities abounding around us. The ability to connect into health information exchanges through a HIPAA-compliant platform is going to change the way that we provide EMS care. It's going to give us insights we never had. It's going to make our diagnostics even better. It's going to make our healthcare better. It's going to make our communities better, but we have to embrace it. And if we resist, we'll become obsolete. Now, China, on the other hand, has the access to the same technology that we have, but they're using it in a different way. China has adopted an AI-first strategy. They've now launched AI-only doctors and an AI-only hospital. We believe in a clinician-first approach where I made a better clinician. China and now Saudi Arabia have launched where you just go and talk to AI. Now, I have an ethical issue with that, but from a clinical issue, they're having a 95% first diagnostic success rate, at least what they say, and it's probably true, because the AI doctor is really, really smart. So this is coming as well. So how can EMS actually integrate AI? I showed you some options there, but let's think about this a little bit more. I started the video today off by showing you the video of Sri Lanka, where we already have augmented reality in the ambulances that are being used by 400 to 500 ambulances a day. Why don't you just integrate in that this AI technology, which, by the way, they're doing, and now I've got a clinician that's helping my clinician. I'm using LiDAR to scan the patient and get things like height and weight and vital signs. We're using remote monitoring to assess heart rate and blood pressure. But now I can have the conversation about the patient's medical history that I would never be able to look up and read on my own. I can free up cognitive load. While I'm doing a procedure and the patient's vital sign changes, AI can beep up and say, hey, by the way, Donnie, the patient's map just changed. Their shock index just trended a little bit different. By the way, the med that you're about to give is going to have an interaction with the med that their fourth specialist gave them that's, by the way, is already conflicting with 2 other meds on their med list. That is what the future is going to have really quick. However, we have to make sure that we don't resist this change. So what's some of the barriers to resistance that we have to be aware of? And I'm just going to put this up here right here. There's a lot of biases out there, and I encourage you to think about these. If you're a leader or if you're an aspiring leader, you need to understand this entire list and protect yourself and your staff from falling into these traps. But let me give a couple examples of what this looks like. If you've seen one EMS system, oh, yes, there it is. If you've seen one EMS system, you've seen one EMS system. That was said in 1970s by James O. Page, founder of Jones Magazine. James Page was a visionary for EMS. James Page said that as a call to break down barriers. James Page said that so we can work together as a system and as a profession. Somehow, over 40 years, we now use that as an excuse and a crutch, and it's got to stop. If you've seen one EMS system, you've seen one EMS system translates, my system is fundamentally different than your system, and my system's better than your system, therefore, I can't learn from you, you can't learn from me, and this is the way I do it. And by the way, I'm going to have my chief here, and I'm going to have another chief 5 miles away, and another chief 5 miles away, and we're all going to do things different, and we're all going to have duplication. That is not going to be sustainable into the future. We can see the effect of that today. We can choose to ignore that. And if we ignore it too long, you're going to go out of service. We have to break from this bias. This is a framing bias. We took something that was a call for unity and made it a call for division. And that does not take us into the future. Status quo bias. Hey, this is how we've always done it. This is called tradition. Would you like a shovel? I'm good, I got a spoon. I'm so grateful that we've advanced in EMS, but be careful. Don't let status quo bias influence you to make you resist the technology I showed you of what's possible. Confirmation bias. You know, I put that up, the Waymo clip up, and I had an EMS chief who publicly on social media sent a picture of a Waymo in front of a traffic cone that was confused. It's like, cool. Sure. Did Waymo encounter a traffic cone and get confused? Yeah. Have they fixed that? Yeah. By the way, they also did 96 million miles and not a single at-risk death. How many people have died in your service this year? And it was more than one. We have to make sure that we don't let confirmation bias keep us. Blackberries, a little story. I took a break in Sri Lanka. I had Sri Lanka Part 1, Sri Lanka Part 2. The war came to an end. We were going. And then the Haiti earthquake happened. So I got a call and said, hey, will you go to Haiti? I was like, I'm kind of in the war zone in Sri Lanka. They're like, yeah, but the war's technically over. It's like, technically, but we still have 200,000 people here. They're like, cool, but this thing happened in Haiti. There's a helicopter inbound. So I jumped on the helicopter, flew around the world, not by helicopter, a couple jets involved, and then took another helicopter, landed in Port-au-Prince a few days after the earthquake. And the airport was closed, rubble was everywhere, and I get off the chopper, and I had like $250,000 in a backpack, another story. But they hand me an iPhone, and this was 2010, early January. I'd never seen an iPhone. They're like, this is your phone. I said, I use Blackberries. They're like, not here, you don't. Here's your iPhone. And the thing started to ring. I didn't even know how to answer it. Like I was looking for, I felt like an idiot. I didn't know how to answer it. If you had asked anyone in the world in 2009 what their favorite phone was, it was a BlackBerry. How many of you have Blackberries? How many of you loved your Blackberries at the time? Yeah, right? How many of you I'm kind of glad I don't have a BlackBerry today. But, you know, here's the thing. Industry experts in a billion-dollar industry said, what's the best phone out there? And it was an echo chamber. Everyone said it's a BlackBerry. Everyone said, well, the iPhone has no keyboard. It uses way too much data. Our network, our infrastructure isn't designed for it. It will never work. It's not a phone. We don't know what it is. And by the way, it's very expensive. And, well, they even went on video.
Steve, let me ask you about the iPhone and the Zune, if I may. The Zune was getting some traction, then Steve Jobs goes to Macworld and he pulls out this iPhone. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not. We have our strategy. We've got great.
They have their strategy. That didn't work out for them too good, right? The point is, when it comes to technology, sometimes we don't understand what we need. We only look at the future through what we know today. And when the visionary comes and says, no, here's a better way of doing it, sometimes we resist that because we can't even fathom the world in front of us. I believe EMS is at a similar intersection. And some of you might be there today. You might say, well, that's cool, but that's not going to intersect with my service. You don't understand my service. I can't afford it. It's no way I can afford those devices. We're not going to have a flying car. I can't even replace my ambulance. The reality is that technology innovation doesn't care. It's going to come anyway. And I hope that I can encourage you to at least consider the what ifs. Is 2025 or 2026 or 2009? So in 2009, this company, brand new company came up and they said, hey, by the way, we are Uber. And we're going to have people use their phone and call for a shared car service owned by a stranger. And at the time, you probably remember someone around 2011 when they finally went public with this said, well, wait a second, you're going to use a phone to use the internet to call a stranger and get in a stranger's car. Stranger danger, I've been told we'll never do that, right? It's not safe, people are going to die, it's a terrible model. The taxi cab industry went all in. Like they called every elected official, they took out commercials, they were on the airwaves. They said, this will cause death. We are a regulated, trusted enterprise. The state regulates us. Brr. What happened? Taxi cab got it wrong. Taxi industry's lost 70 to 75%. They had the opportunity, the technology of staring at them in the face. The taxi industry said, people will always need a taxi. No. People will always need transport. It doesn't have to be through a taxi. In EMS, some of you are saying people are always going to need EMS. No. People are always going to need medical care that's mobile. Some of them may need transport in a mobile medical device. It doesn't have to be a traditional ambulance with a traditional crew. The industry is going to figure out a solution that is more cost-effective, safer, more transparent, with better outcomes. I encourage us. The taxi industry could have said, let's integrate your technology with our infrastructure, and now let's make sure that we have a solution that is the best of both worlds. EMS is at that same inflection point right now. I encourage you as a leader, I encourage you as a clinician, figure out how you can embrace and integrate this technology rather than resisting for the sake of resistance. The public is going to demand that we have a better solution, and they're going to migrate towards it. Keep a clinician-centric approach. Use AI. Make sure you're a clinician first. Have AI write your chart. Make sure you read it, understand it, and defend it. Make sure that you can testify that was your assessment. If there's words in there you don't understand, please delete them and write the word that you do understand. Otherwise, you're going to just look like an idiot on the stand. No one wants that. Connect with your patients. AI is going to do a lot of amazing things. But AI is not going to show compassion. It's not going to connect with your patients with a human touch. Last week or 2 weeks ago on Facebook, one of the groups asked, hey, as a paramedic, what's one of the best things that you do? Or some question like that. And there were all kinds of responses, and it was, I can do thoracotomies or surgical crikes. Cool. I've done my share of those. My answer was compassion, holding the patient's hand. Yes, there's been patients that I've emptied the drug box on and done heroics on, and I remember a few of them. But 100% of the patients I've ever touched, I had the chance to connect with as a human with compassion. Don't lose that. That is what sets you apart. Make sure that you're a professional in doing so. As a regulator, I don't know of a single complaint that started with, Bob was such a nice, compassionate man and a nice paramedic. He gave me the wrong med, but he was a nice guy. I've adjudicated a few thousand complaints. I've only lost one court case. It's part of protecting our profession. Be nice. The public doesn't know your protocol, but they know if you're a jerk. They know if you don't treat them with respect. Verbalize your care, because you're on video, by the way, everywhere you go. I hope that the video gets smart and is integrated to your patient care report so it will write your chart. But when you go to take care of the patient, assume that you're on 10 different cameras. Miss Jane, I'm a paramedic. I'm sorry you're feeling bad today. I'm listening to your lung sounds, and by the way, they're clear and equal bilateral, just like my family doctor said, because the nanny cam, the ring doorbell cam, the street cam, the police body cam are all recording you. That can be the difference between a complaint being dismissed and it moving forward. Verbalize your care, leverage the technology in front of you, be an advocate for the patient, and remain professional at all times. As I started this, I had this list up. I hope you can see this list through the lens that I see it in now. As we go into the future, be curious, collaborate, break down those artificial barriers. Don't believe the lie that your system is the best system and only you got it right. No, you're part of a medical profession that stretches coast to coast, north to south. Demand excellence. If it doesn't meet that, run the other way. Never lower the standard. Adapt and be inclusive. These are some of the pictures of the people who got us here today. Incredible people. They saw and they overcame. But now it's your turn. I encourage you, as you attend this conference, think about how you can be a better EMS clinician and a better leader and embrace this technology. I think we might have 5 minutes if there's any questions. Perfect. Any questions at all? Okay. I turn it back over. Thank you so much. I hope this has been encouraging for you. Oh. Yeah, I think we have a question.
Very far into the future, what do you think are more baby steps that we could be thinking about just so that we start to socialize what's possible, what's realistic, and get people buy-in into all these technologies?
Fantastic question. I'll repeat the first part of it, and he basically said, hey, the flying cars and all that, it's kind of cool. It looks far into the future. What's some baby steps? I wish I had the luxury of saying we can take baby steps. But here's my take on it. The technology curve is coming so fast. The opportunity for baby steps happened 10 years ago and 5 years ago. And that's what all the other people in healthcare started doing. Hospitals started integrating AI subtly into their systems. In fact, 1955 was the first integration of AI into hospital-based systems. Literally 70 years, right? So we missed the opportunity for baby steps. I think that this is going to come fast. It's going to be disruptive. Waymo alone is expanding coast to coast in a rapid expansion right now. They're launching in 8 or 9 more cities every couple months. So it's coming quick. Back to EMS. Demand that you have AI integration, at least on the basics. It should be on your charting system. You should be figuring it out for billing. You should be figuring it out for quality assurance, QA, QI. Number one. Number two, some EMS services have already ordered that flying car. I'm not saying that's the right answer for you, but some are, and they're looking at that already. So I think baby steps are going to be tough because if we don't move fast enough, I think we're going to be torpedoed from the side, and we're going to look back and say, what just happened to the industry that I loved? Because here's a new way to deliver it. And I think for the public, it's best if we do that.
First off, thank you very much. That was a brilliant keynote speech. Appreciate this. And it's good to see the future of what can be, too, because we're so used to, okay, we've always done it this way. My question is multi-part. So first off, the AI app that you had on your phone, what is the name of it?
Yep.
How much does it cost? Where can I get it? Who's the company that made it, and how do I invest in them?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, so let me be clear. I uploaded some fake medical records to it, so non-HIPAA. That was simply ChatGPT. Yep. That was simply ChatGPT. Now, there are companies, in fact, companies here in New Jersey, who have already done a HIPAA-compliant container and a stack that you can put health records in, and you can interact with it just like that. My My old college roommate up in Princeton actually launched that. But there are companies that are doing that. I just did it through ChatGPT to show the power of a large language model in analyzing records. I think multiple companies will be coming out very, very quickly with that technology, and then the power is going to be when you link that to health information exchanges, and now you compartmentalize every individual record out there, so you give an access code, now you can access it. All the technology components exist, some are commercializing it already, but that was ChatGPT. Yep. Anything else? We got one over here.
Giving me my exercise.
Thank you. Hi, thank you again. I have a question, obviously. I'm standing, oh my God. But with AI, I use it too. It's very easy to become comfortable and lazy with it. So how would you prevent providers to become not lazy, like with AI? Like how would that be, you know?
Yeah. How do we keep us from not becoming lazy with AI? I think I'm filtering through a few different things there. But, I think it comes down to professionalism. In EMS, I still think we're at a pivotal moment. I hope that we continue to track towards being a respected medical profession, and that starts with respecting ourselves and holding ourselves accountable. And if we raise the standards, we can do that. There is a subgroup of people in our own profession who wants to claw us down to the bottom, and they want to claw us back down to being non-professional techs. And some might try to use AI to do that. I don't think that's the right solution for our industry, nor for the United States. And if we are simply going to make ourselves, untrained or lower trained labor, and we don't value education, we don't value standards, we're going to end up in that spot. But I really hope that at this pivot point, we choose to be a profession, we choose to embrace education, we choose to police ourselves. A hallmark of a profession is professionals hold the profession accountable internally. So using AI to make ourselves better would be doing that. Being lazy and not understanding the words that are put out, not doing a proper assessment, then yeah, it's going to be a rapid erosion down to an untrained technician, and we lose the cloud of being a profession. So I think that's what we have to do.
I turn on my system and I say, hey, I'm headed to a call. I have a seizing patient, 59-year-old female. What should I be doing at the scene to assess the patient? And it just walks me through it, and I'm ready for everything by the time I land at the patient's house. So that's how we're using it. I've been using it for the last 2 years or so, and it's worked really well.
I should probably just add one caveat. We have to make sure that anything that we use is HIPAA compliant, and that it's an approved vertical. I'll use ChatGPT for fun stuff, but do not use ChatGPT for your run reports. That's HIPAA compliant data. It's got to be in a HIPAA compliant system. They exist, but just don't use that. So don't find yourself in violation of something that's not HIPAA compliant. I think that wraps up our questions. I'll hang out here. Candace in New Jersey, thank you so much for having me, and have a great conference. Cool.